If you're not at the Chris Brown show, man, you've missed out a great deal. This one is taken from Chris Brown. It's called Residuals. He performed it live, and I'm very, very happy to say that I got to witness that craziness, man. It was so amazing. And yeah, we got a lot of flack actually from guys saying, no, yeah, why'd you go there? Because guys were jealous and they knew that Chris Brown actually throws down in this regard. But let me take this time to welcome you. A very good evening, and thank you so much for joining us. This is In Depth, a show that comes your way every single Wednesday between 6 and 7 p.m. And of course, here we dissect pertinent issues that affect you with the aim of breaking them down for better understanding. We bring in the experts, people that are more conversant on these issues to help us understand them better. And of course, today is no different. As usual, you're more than welcome to be part of the conversation by letting us know what your thoughts are on the conversation we're having tonight. I'm sure you're going to be very, very excited about the conversation that we are going to be delving into tonight. We have our WhatsApp platform that is very much available for you to utilize. +26739111066. You can also call us directly if you'd like to on 3911066. We are also available across all social media platforms as at Yarona FM. That is how you find us. And of course, my name is Oratile. Kefitlhile. Very excited once again to be here with you tonight. Now, tonight's conversation is basically just to, unlock original opportunities and empowering artists in 2025 right here in Botswana. And I'm sure that, you would know that the creative industry in Botswana has seen incredible growth and recognition. In 2024, we've seen artists breaking into international spaces, impactful government initiatives also being launched, as well as exciting collaborations being out in the fore. Now, as we look to 2025, there's a pressing need to harness this momentum and, of course, address the challenges that we have heard a lot of artists, voice out, as well as chart a course that positions Botswana as a regional leader in the creative economy. And tonight we're here to explore how we can make this happen with these key questions, of course, in mind. I have in studio with me a creative consultant. His name is Eddie Mihigo, to help us understand what exactly it is that we need to do as Botswana creatives to ensure that we take ourselves up there and we're at par with other industries or other countries, if you will, other economies, right? Yeah. Eddie, good evening, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah?
It's
crazy.
It is, but it's good. It's a good crazy because
100%.
There's a lot. It's an entire year to get things done.
It's called the creative industry for a reason.
For a reason, yes. It's chaos. It's chaos.
Right.
That's
incredible.
Right.
And for somebody who's listening to you now and wondering what exactly does a creative consultant do? What exactly do you do, Eddie?
All right. So in summary, what I do is I try and translate the creative language to people who are academics and who are technocrats and who are politicians and who are in governance.
Right.
That's in essence what I do. Yes. I try and break it down so they can understand why creatives are the way they are, and that way they can get together and make things happen on the same platform at the same level.
And I'm sure you'll agree with me that there has actually been significant gaps, in terms of especially communication between the corporate sector and the creative industry.
Yes. Creatives are horrible communicators. Horrible.
All they gotta do is be creative.
That's their job. Yeah. So you have to have someone to show up for them on time, to send formal emails, to make proper phone calls, to give out business cards. You can't expect someone to dream up something from God knows where and be so organized and
eloquent
and all of that at the same time. It's 100. Very difficult and complicated.
You have a very, very important job indeed.
Yes.
Now, Botswana creatives are incredibly talented, but exposure remains a challenge. We've seen the smaller bits and pieces of them, going to South Africa. Some would, have collaborations here and there and all of these things, right?
Yeah.
How can we better showcase their work on regional platforms and help them gain the confidence to thrive beyond the Botswana borders?
So first of all, I believe they need confidence. And to have confidence, they need to know who they are as artists. And they need to appreciate the fact that the music that whatever expression, whether it's music, art, that they have is unique, is unique to them. So you'll find that any artist from anywhere in the world, especially Botswana, once they figure that out, they thrive anywhere in the world. If you look at someone like Wilson Goni, for example, right, he can be here. You'll see him walking around just being a regular Joe. And he'll tell you, now next week I'm going to be in Germany exhibiting at one of the biggest exhibitions in Europe, right? And he's saying that it's nothing. And that's because he's comfortable with who he is. He knows that his work is unique, and he knows that anywhere in the world is going to stand out.
Right.
And with some expressions, especially on the music side, that can't be said because if you ask a local artist, what music do you do? They'll tell you, oh, I do R&B, or I do hip hop, or I do Afro pop, or I do this. And when they say that, they're comparing their music to something that is already established, right? And automatically they look at them at themselves as falling short. So that's something that needs to change.
Yes, yes.
And for music specifically, the only way to do that, actually for any expression, the only way to do that is to expose the musician. They have to go through the motion of being unsure, of being insecure, of having those butterflies, and eventually they'll see that actually this is not rocket science. I got this. My voice is unique, my product is amazing, and it can literally stand next to anything from anywhere on the planet. So that's the biggest thing that we need to do in this country. So we have to, of course, with music again, it has to have a tag.
Right.
It has to be called something. I always say that again, you cannot say you're doing something unique, but then the name is borrowed from somewhere else. One thing I appreciate about South Africans is they go through pains to identify and to give a tag to whatever music that they're doing. If you go anywhere in South Africa, any region, you'll find that whatever music is done there, the traditional music has a specific name.
Yeah.
And some of it is not even blowing up regionally. It's just in South Africa, but it's got a specific name. So that's something else I think we need to really work towards. So those two things will really allow us, one, to know who we are, and two, to really differentiate ourselves, at least to a certain extent, when we're outside the country. So I think you do those two,
you're home.
Good to go. Yeah, you're on the right path.
Absolutely.
That's right.
And I'm glad that you were mentioning South Africa as maybe a sounding board and maybe a pedestal for Botswana to also look at. And maybe just looking at it, we've seen how our industry has grown in leaps and bounds over the years. We've started, with one small artist to now many artists that are recognized, in the regional space, if you will. We started with one, what is it called, music award ceremony. Now we have multiple of them, and they're recognizing, great artists who are then, penetrating the market in different ways, right? What steps should Botswana take to position itself as a regional hub for creativity? And that means now connecting the SADC region through arts, culture, as well as collaboration. What is stopping us from actually doing this?
So I love the fact that the NSCB is trying to map out our industry.
That's the national,
the National Arts Council of Botswana. Yes. They're going to undertake an exercise to try and figure out, okay, how do the creative and cultural industries work in the country? Because that's number one. That will allow us to see the gaps.
Yeah.
Secondly, we have to make as much noise as possible, right? And making noise is not just holding festivals. It's not just performing left, right, and center. Making noise is also going to some of these organizations and some of these regional spaces, like the Southern African Development Council. Like I always say, the headquarters being in Gaborone right here is a huge thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who are trying to find ways to penetrate the region. Even South Africa doesn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
I've had meetings with South African guys are like, well, we don't know where to start. We want to go to Zambia, we want to go to Namibia, but we don't know where to start.
Oh, they really have an advantage of population. It's not like
exactly. And the thing is, in South Africa, for example, all the big companies are there, right? And these companies have an international way of doing things, right? So they don't understand the African way of doing things, right? So regionally, they're like, okay, we've set up in SA, we've hit the ceiling, we want to reach Africa, but we don't know where to start. We're at the bottom and we have to look up, right? So in Botswana, we have an advantage because we have this organization that's right here in the city, and it doesn't take 2 combis and 5 buses to get there. You can from here, you can take a cab, it's like 10 minutes away. Yeah. These guys are the most receptive people you ever see. So those are the places where we have to start making noise. There, UNESCO, UNICEF, the embassies, all of these guys to say, guys, is there a way we can collaborate through you with artists in Zimbabwe or in Namibia or in Angola, right? Because what happens usually is when, say, an international embassy comes and wants to do a program, they'll say, we want to bring artists from our country. So if it's the US embassy, they'll say they want to bring an American artist to have exchange with a local artist.
Right.
We need to flip that on its head and say, no, 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 no. What we want is we want to go to Zimbabwe,
Right.
do a program there through you guys and the U.S. Embassy in Zim.
Right.
You see what I mean?
Get it, yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's how you then create those linkages, right?
Mhm.
It's one thing to get booked in South Africa and just go there and play. It's another thing to contact the South African embassy to say, oh, I've got 300 pairs of shoes that I want to donate to a school in South Africa, but I want to do it through you guys, because then it has a different feel to it. You see, and that's how we change our speech, we change our language. And once we do 2 or 3 of these things, then they start realizing that, okay, these guys want to work, and they've already established linkages outside of us, and now they want to bring us in.
Yeah.
And again, it's just touch and go, and it'll happen. It'll happen.
You're very important. You play a very important role in the creative industry, because like you and I said at the beginning, creatives are just meant to be creative. They don't necessarily know the ins and outs of what exactly am I going to say to UNESCO, what is my value proposition, how should I word my proposal, and all of these things. How important is it for artists, especially in Botswana, those that are in the creative space, to actually put together a team, so that they focus on the craft?
It's very important. Very important.
Because we don't take that seriously at
No,
all.
we.
I
I think
you want to take all of the you're booked at an event.
Yeah.
You want to take all of the takings. That's all. That's your bottom line. I want
Alright.
to perform a hot song that I release in December.
Yeah.
That's all. I'm taking the money from here on.
Okay, it's not. Again, like I have to translate, because it's not that easy, right? Because the reality is, before you do anything, you have to sell your vision to someone.
Sure.
And at the very least, that's what the artist is supposed to do. And what you find is most artists don't even know they have to sell the vision to someone.
Yes.
You see, they think my voice is enough,
talented,
my
we
star
can
power
get it.
is enough,
Yeah.
but you have to sit down with people and actually talk to them about your dreams, your visions, and how potentially you want to achieve them. That's what gives them the drive and the passion and the inspiration to actually even say, you know what, let's not get paid for 3 months. Let's build you up to a point where you can make enough that you will be comfortable and we'll be comfortable.
I get it.
There's a Kenyan artist called Fenagitu. She's huge now in East Africa. I had a chance of listening to her talk in 2017, 2018, when I was in Nairobi. And that's what she said. She's like, when we started out, I already had a team. I had a photographer. I had someone who handled my wardrobe.
Yeah.
I had a lawyer. I had a booking agent. I had a manager. But for close to a year, these guys got paid nothing.
All volunteerism.
All voluntary. All
Yeah.
work was voluntary, and I had to sit down with them and literally paint a picture of 5 years. So this is my 5-year plan. Year 1, this is what we're going to do. We're going to grind. Year 2, we should be able to make a little bit of something. Year 3, I want you guys to actually diversify, and through me to open up your own agencies, your own companies. And by year 5, I'll release you guys to actually do your own thing, to take on other clients and everything.
You're right.
And now she's a huge star in East Africa, but it had to start somewhere, So at the very least, if you know what you're required of as an artist, that you say this is the least you need to do, and you cover that base, it's then easy to build a team, right?
Yeah.
But also, like you've correctly pointed out, you have to know your limitations.
Yes.
You have to know what you can do and what you can't do,
Yeah.
right? And most times you find, you're talented, you look good, you dress pretty well, and so you think you can do it all.
Yeah.
And that's not the case. Even myself, at some point I had to decide to say, this rapping thing is not really for me. I mean, I'm not bad at it,
Yeah.
but I'm not gonna get past a certain
I
point.
get it. Yeah.
So let me find a gap
very
and just slot myself in that gap. And that's what got me here today. Yeah.
And then there's the monetization part
mm,
of the creative industry. We're speaking about how you get one gig and already you want to chow all the money that comes from it, because you're the manager, you're everything that you are as an artist in this
Yeah.
regard. Let's talk about monetization as an important aspect of a creative, right? Money is often overlooked as a growth lever. You're thinking, because this December I charged 15,000, next December I'm charging 20,000, and that is how you gauge then your growth in this regard. How can digital platforms then be used to effectively generate income for Botswana's creatives and increase their visibility regionally and globally? And also being cognizant of the fact that there's always this notion that no, YouTube in Botswana doesn't make money, or no, you can't get paid by YouTube because you're here. You have to set it up in South Africa first for you to start getting paid and all of these things.
So the first thing is, like you've correctly pointed out, like the model has to change.
Yeah.
Because being paid for gigs is not sustainable, right?
That's
You can
me.
only you can
I'll
there's
tell
only
you for
there's
free.
only so much,
Yeah.
right? There's only so many clients that are gonna pay you. There's so many of you artists who are vying for the little opportunities that are available.
Yeah.
So there's need to be a way to get some money passively, right? And interestingly, artists think the only way to do that is to put a song on Spotify, on Apple Music, and then wait for it to generate a little bit of coin.
Yeah.
The reality is you're gonna get paid like 0.01 or 0.001 for like 1,000 streams or something like that. Like it's and that's 0.001 US dollars. Now convert that to Pula, and you realize that it's an exercise in futility, right?
Yeah.
So that's the reality of the digital streaming platforms. So more than often we use that just for visibility, for people to consume your music, right? And then there's the royalty payments, right? I've always maintained that we use a standardized royalty system that was set up by, for lack of a better term, by Europeans that set it up to benefit them.
Yeah.
Right. And I've always maintained that we need to find our own way of figuring out what a play is worth within our population as Botswana.
Yes.
Right. We're 2 million, right? So you literally maybe only get 1 million plays if you're the most popular artist in the country, right? So for that million, what is one play worth, right? Because it can't be the same as South Africa.
Yeah.
It can't be the same as Mozambique.
Or Nigeria.
It can't. It can't be the same as Nigeria or the US. So we have to establish that, because if our artists are getting paid the same as South African artists, right? If you look at if you do the calculations, they're losing out.
Yeah.
Because that guy, when he gets 10 million plays, you only get 1 million.
Sure. Wow.
You see, and that's what's happening. That's what's killing us right now.
Yes.
You see, so that model needs to be relooked, right? But that's another conversation.
And that's a conversation that needs to be had with who exactly?
So that's a conversation that needs to be had with governance. You see?
Okay.
Yeah. So it has to be had with the policymakers, with legislators, to say, okay, we need to do an exercise to figure out. And that's why that mapping thing is very important, because the mapping study will show that the structure is not working, the model is not working because of the population size, right? So that's number two. That needs to change. And then, so the royalty system is okay, but only for the really, really big artists who are actually getting placed. Yeah,
big in this country.
That's right, right? So that's two. Third, of course, you've got your now this is where we get to the interesting things. There's something called sync placements.
Okay.
Sync placements is where your song gets placed in movies, in documentaries, in jingles, and all of those things, right? That, for me, that's like key. Because
we've seen Hennessy on Blood and Water, for example.
Exactly. Yeah. See, now that's where you start talking money. Because every time that episode is played, you get paid.
Even for like 10 seconds.
10 seconds, yeah. You get paid. Wow. And once you get through the door, they start, and you do 1, 2, 3, they start asking you for more. Number three. Yes. Yeah. So syncs, very important. And then lastly, education. Education.
Very important. Yes.
Education allows you to learn how to diversify.
Absolutely.
Being an artist is only a springboard to many other things. Right? An artist is only a funnel. Right? Because you find that most artists have diversified into other things. You find your Jay-Z's, for example, who have opened clubs. Your Jay-Z's have gone into beverages. Yeah. Right? They've gone into attires. Yeah. Right? They've got into artist management. So we need to start looking at art as our artists as businessmen and women and brands. Right? Look at Kanye West, who went into accessories, into clothing, and into design as well. So I think the only way we're really going to make a switch and allow our artists to really get paid is to show them that there's nothing wrong with going back to school,
Yeah.
with learning a new skill,
Mm.
with getting a degree, getting a certificate, and then becoming something much more, like transcending art itself and becoming a much bigger voice.
Mm.
So yeah, I think those are the four things
Yes. Yes.
that I think we could do on the monetization side of things to ensure that our artists get some passive money, because
Absolutely.
it's really sad, and being an artist it takes a toll on your mental health, right?
Absolutely.
Because remember, like I said, you're pulling these things from God knows where,
Mhm.
and your job is to make everybody feel good.
yes.
That means you have to embody that feeling,
Mm.
right? And imagine if you go, you're feeling a bit low, you go out to an event, and the artist is sadder than you are.
Yeah.
You're like, why am I here? Like,
Why do I pay money?
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm.
So, but the question is always, what does the artist do when they leave the stage?
Yes. Yes.
What are they doing when they're not writing, right? And you'll find that a lot of artists don't know what else to do, and that's when they get into less than positive things. They get into negative situations because they don't know how to utilize their free time.
Absolutely.
But if they've got something that's keeping them going, if they know that, okay, next year I need to get some mock-ups for a new design that I'm doing, that's what they're gonna shift to naturally. It's just like you. If you feel like too much work, I need to do something else.
Yes. Yes.
You might write a song.
Mm.
You might draw something. You might paint a little something.
Mm.
We need to do the reverse
Absolutely.
for artists. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that you'll agree with me that support is needed for local
Yeah,
artists and for
definitely.
local creatives in Botswana. We've spoken about how South Africa then found itself in this advantage, if you will. And we see bits and pieces. We see the likes of Black Coffee, for example, advocating for more support for South African artists and we spoke, you and I, about legislative support that's needed to ensure that the monetization aspect of it is also brought to the fore. Now, what would actually implement a status of the artist law, for our artists, and how would it improve their working conditions as well as rights? You spoke about a Kenyan artist who said, I also had a lawyer within my team, and we don't see the importance of looking at those aspects and seeing how we can better our art or protect our craft in that regard, looking at the different legislative structures that are there or not.
The beauty is internationally, there are documents that are being released every year,
Right.
even more than a year, talking about how best to model the creative industry from the legislation side of things. And these guys literally look at the best possible scenario and do case studies on what has worked, right, and what hasn't worked, and they give you a guideline to say, okay, this is what you need to do. And the biggest things are, first of all, there has to be stakeholder engagement. I mean, you can see it happening. For example, right, let me give you a perfect example. Right now, right, different ministries are having stakeholder engagement, right? They're meeting, okay, we're meeting this person, we're meeting this person, and even the Ministry of Sports is having stakeholder engagements at the moment. The art side, what's going on? You see, and I'm not saying anything. All I'm saying is we have to start treating the arts as a bona fide organization that requires some of these things. Because how are you going to know what the artists want and need if you don't talk to them?
Absolutely.
How are you going to know the gaps if you don't go to different centers to see how they're working? How are you going to know which other ministry is best linked with the art ministry if you don't actually do the work? Right? And I think it's also on the artists themselves, because I was speaking to a friend of mine. He's like, nah, Eddie, I'm tired of talking. I want to work. I want to get paid. I'm like, dude, there has to be a framework that allows for you to get paid. And that framework has to work better than the one that was established last year or the year before that. Because if you look at you right now, would you say you are happy with how things were done in the past up to this point? No. So why should I open my checkbook and sign a check if after you get paid, you're still going to cry about the same thing? Right? So we really have to go back and say, okay, how do we turn this industry into something formal? South Africa has inched closer to that because they've understood the value of the industry. They know that this industry is so flexible and so porous. It adds on to every other single department, industry, ministry in the nation,
Yeah.
right? I was talking to someone else who was saying, you know what, Eddie, I used to be in the beauty pageant business, and I'm quoting him, and now I'm in the beauty business, and my job is to showcase the beauty of this country through, you know, not just these young ladies,
Yeah.
but also, you know, the cultures that they represent, the different localities, you know, where they're from. So we go into the music that's played there. We go into the paintings. We go into the weaving, if there's weaving, that into the attire, into the, you see, that's art. You see, the problem is this person has gotten it, but he's gotten it on the line between the production and the consumer. You see, everybody on that chain, including the artists, need to understand that too, to say, I'm not just a single entity putting out a product. I'm part of something bigger. I'm telling the story of this country, of my neighborhood, right? Of my family and of myself through the expression that I'm giving out. So when you listen to my music, when you look at my painting, when you watch my movie, when you read my book, I want you to feel like coming to Ramotswa.
Yeah.
To experience the vibe. You see what I mean? So that's what we need to be doing. But to get there, some serious structures need to be put in place.
I was going to ask, how long until we get there to a point where an artist doesn't even have a side hustle or doesn't even have a backup plan and says, I'm an artist full on and this is my bread and butter. And I'm actually, getting the fruits, from my sweat and tears and blood, whatever it is that I would have put in this craft. How far away are we?
We're not
get
far.
To a point?
We're not far at all. I think our artists get it already.
Yeah. Okay.
I think they get what they need to do, right? If you listen to a lot of artists, they really localize their sounds. If you really listen to urban music, it's not as westernized as it was 5 to 7 years ago. It's very localized, and doing that means they understand that now we don't need to paint a picture of over there. We need to paint a picture of over here. That's already half the work done, and the other half is now around them. In putting together a culture that is enabling for them to then get the value out of that. You see, and that's what is not there. That's why these things are so important. The reason why I say I'm a translator, right, is because the artist is already doing their job, right? What they're doing needs to be translated in a language that the corporate, the governors, that the organizations need to understand, so that they can see the value in what is being done. You see, for someone like Wilson to go overseas, someone from outside needed to have seen the value in it enough to say, hey man, why don't you come over here and spend half of the year here? For Dato Seiko to make the transition to South Africa, right? For Mposivina to do the same, someone had to have seen the value. Someone had to have come here to say, oh my goodness, it's not just this person, it's everything she embodies. And I can see that even with the consumers around her. So I think the artists are doing the jobs. I just think the translation needs to be happening. And I think we need more translators. We need more people.
More Eddies.
Yeah, we need more Eddies. We need more translators, more people who get it, who will really just get together and really push on all angles. BTO needs to come to the party. And the Ministry of just sports need to come to the party, because there's some things that you cannot do in sports without artists. I'll tell you, whenever I switch on the EPL and EPL game, you hear songs in the background. When you hear that, the artist is getting paid. Every time you hear a little something in the back, an NBA game, a hockey, whatever, whenever you hear a song in the back, an artist is getting. Now, has the framework been set up in the country for that to happen? You see, and now if you want to open a can of worms, go to the BFA, go to the league, right, where the games are played, and ask them. Say, okay, so guys, what music do you play during halftime? Has it been registered?
Right.
Is the artist getting paid? And you'll find that some don't play any music because
they're afraid
they don't have they don't have the capacity.
Okay.
Like the basketball games locally, they can't play any music. because the basketball association doesn't have a way to actually pay for the music that's being played.
Yeah.
So you see, so those are the small things.
You have a lot of work to do, Eddie, because again, you have to translate these things and make the relevant authorities understand what role they play in ensuring that these frameworks are drafted and
And they
artists
know.
benefit. Do they know?
They know. The thing is, a lot of people are like, nah, Eddie, hey man, you gotta slow down because it's a lie. There's a lot of things that are happening, and I'm like, it's really not that complicated. Someone can wake up in the morning and say, I want Rati to MC my event tomorrow, and by tomorrow you are there, and I'll be honest with you, these guys could pay you in a week if they want.
Yes, yes.
To be honest with you, if they really wanted to, and I'm sure you know that, like the whole thing is because that's the law that has been set. So we're gonna make sure you get paid on the 30th day or on the 90th day.
Policy dictates.
You see what I'm saying? Yeah. But the policy actually says anywhere between day 1 and day 90.
Sure, 100%.
You see what I mean?
Wow, that is very eye-opening. That is very insightful indeed.
Yeah, so it's just about really if you formalize things, right? And what you'll find is people start taking you seriously, right? And like I said at the beginning, it's not for the artist to do that. The artist has to be the rarest commodity in this whole conversation. And that's why you will never see me come here with an artist to have this conversation. Ever. Because 5 minutes in, I tried that once. We didn't even get to the interview.
Yeah.
We were still outside and the artist was like, I got something to do. I got to go.
Oh my God.
So I understood that clearly
it's bottom line is
your job is art. Absolutely. Your job is not formal conversation. So I think at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's very simple. It's day to day. It starts with a conversation, and the more we have these conversations, the closer we get to getting some things done.
We can't wait to get there. You keep saying soon. We're not very far. And I'm going to be looking to your leadership, sir, to see how far we are and how soon this thing could happen. Because a lot of dreams are actually going down the drain because of what the climate looks like currently.
We'll dig them up. We'll dig them up.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you something else. There's some things I can't say right now, for example, because we're having some conversations behind closed doors. And these are really amazing conversations that I really want to just blow the top off and be like, but I'll still do just hold it together for a little bit longer, and we'll let you know when you can actually, make announcements here. Third. But I will say this, like, we are where we are now is, I mean, it's amazing, right? There's an event called the Music in Bizo that happens in August 2025.
Where is this?
In Durban, in South Africa.
Durban, yeah.
And interestingly, the Music in Bizo has been looking to get out to Africa, right? And one thing I've been lobbying for is to tell them, listen, guys, your door to Africa is Botswana. The bedroom can be KZN, yes, great.
Sure.
Your living room can be Joburg, awesome, but your door to the continent is Botswana, because there's only 2 million of us. And if you do an event in Botswana, there's so much space for anybody to actually just fly in. There's so much just chilled vibes for anyone to really feel like they belong. So that's one thing, for example. And I think I love the conversations we had last year because they really took what I was telling them seriously. And we are really starting to talk to say, hey, can we do this thing in Botswana in 2026? So
there's hope.
It's not even hope. It's steps.
Yes.
This I'll tell you, this started it might have been 2019, right?
You're very patient. Yeah.
It's you gotta work through it, right? 20 and we made it through the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
And after that, we had to pick up where we left off, right? We had to show that we stand by our word, right? So 2022, I actually took the trip down to Durban, and a lot of them were shocked to say, you are actually here. And I said, I told you I'd come, right? And through the years, we've continued. And now we're getting to a place where things are starting to get unlocked. Having conversations with TuneCore, TuneCore is a global, distribution platform, right? And we're telling TuneCore to say, listen, you need to come to Botswana and speak to our artists. It's a different conversation when you can look your DSP in the eye.
Yes.
You see? And the people around you can see that, oh my goodness, if these guys that are a global company came to Botswana, that means these guys have something.
There's something
You
to
see,
look into, yeah.
We're having the same conversation with TikTok. We're saying, TikTok SA, come to Botswana.
Yeah.
For this time, we don't mind being an extra state. Put us in
Yeah.
your regional budget. Just tell your,
promise,
you know what I'm
yes.
saying? Tell your
Yeah.
bosses you're going to Limpopo and just cross over. Because when I asked them last year, they said, we need to bring the big boss from the UAE. I said, nah, it's not necessary.
Yeah.
We're 3 hours away, 4 hours away from Joburg. We're 45 minutes if you're flying. We're close. We're halfway to Durban.
Yeah.
So just put us as a regional budget. Come, have a conversation with our creatives and see what can happen. And you'll see that they're actually quite talented.
There's potential.
So those are some of the things that have been happening since 2023.
Yeah.
And I think what's happening in 2025 is we're moving to implement some of them. And there's so much. The monetization conversation is the one that's most exciting.
Yes,
because it's still its infancy, but I think that one is such a straight line. If everything that needs to aligns, I would say in 6 months,
we'll be talking something different.
we'll be having a different conversation.
Listen,
that's for sure.
You're foaming at the mouth and you're giving me so much hope. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this could actually become a reality. And there's this initiative by the National Arts Council, the Cultural Mapping Initiative, which a lot of people in the creative space are looking at as a game changer. How can this, the data that these guys are looking to harvest and grow, then be used to identify opportunities and direct resources to areas that will have the biggest impact in the creative industry? Because I think also we need to be directed in what we're doing. Yeah.
I think I'll say it this way: if you go to any company and speak to their marketing manager and you tell them, I'm an influencer, what's the first thing they're going to ask you?
I don't know. I'm not an influencer.
Why are you being so defensive?
What do they ask them? Tell me.
I'm putting a scenario on the table. Come on now.
Yeah.
So the first thing
it was a touchy subject there.
Oh, we need to work through that. We need to work through that for sure.
You triggered me a little bit. Yeah.
So the first thing they'll ask you is for your numbers. How many followers do you have? How many likes? Yeah. That's how many views, right? So it's pretty much the same thing with our industry. Like an industry that is not data driven doesn't exist, because if you're asked about how many listeners you get in your community per day, you won't be able to give an answer. Now, let's say I have some money on the side and I want to do some community events, right? But my bosses tell me for it to happen, I need to have 5,000 people at this event, right? And I come to you and I say, I like your music. I've got this money, but I need to know, how many listeners you have in your community.
Right.
And you can't tell me. Like you're telling me your music is nice.
Yeah.
But I already know that.
How do you know? Yeah.
You see, so that's why data is very, very, everything has to be data driven. And the biggest thing we're lacking in this country is that.
Yes.
The biggest thing, even like our, and I'm putting our radio stations on the chopping block a little bit.
Yeah.
Even like things like charts, right? They have to be data driven. And there's ways of doing it.
Yes.
I love the fact that like Yarona FM, for example, has a voting system. Sure. People vote, this is the music I want, they request. Those are very easy ways in which you can tell that, okay, this artist is popular. Yeah. Because every day we get about 150 requests for this song. You see, but you also need people who literally sit down and comb through all of these requests to say, okay, artist A this much, artist B this much. Okay, what does it mean what does it mean in terms of genres? Oh yeah, R&B is doing better than hip hop. Oh no, traditional music is doing better than both of them. You see, so if we're gonna now solicit for a program from UNESCO, what are we gonna use?
Repitching, yeah.
Okay, we're gonna go the traditional route because most people, that's where they gravitate towards. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And it has to be as practical as that as well.
You make it sound so easy.
It has to be practical.
Yeah.
We don't need like the SPSS, what automation, this. No. Initially, you have to be as practical as possible.
Yeah.
Sit down. Nowadays, you don't need a cassette tape anymore. Now you don't even need CDs anymore.
Yeah.
Now you have files. Now you have WhatsApp. You can literally tabulate and see messages that are coming in. It's hard work, yes, but at the end of the day, it gives you so much credibility when you're actually presenting a proposal to an organization.
So we got a voice note from Dan. Let's hear what Dan has to say.
Hi guys, great show. This is pretty much following the same theme of the discussion that was had with Fox and in Deep some time ago with a local promoter. And basically, the local promoter was saying that as an artist, you essentially had to become a business person, and all the facets of being a business person that came down to writing contracts, building relationships, and basically selling a product, the product being you or your voice and whatnot. So if you're going to talk about being famous as a singer, you first have to become proficient as a business person. And therefore look at yourself as something that you can sell, and something that you can scale. And now you start talking about business terminology and whatnot in the creative space, in your creative space. If you want to be a singer, be a singer. But if you want to be famous, you have to be now an entrepreneur. Or that's what it looks like.
Very interesting.
Very interesting. You hear the language.
Absolutely. And that is the language. That is, you see now.
But the problem with that language is this. He says the artist needs to be the businessman.
Yeah.
No, the artist is the business.
Is the entity, yes.
Yeah, that's the business. That is the brand. You see, a brand doesn't gallivant around. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's people who do the gallivanting for the brand.
You've been doing the wrong thing.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The artist is not the entrepreneur. The artist is the creator. He's the one who feeds us. Because if the artist makes music and the music is wanted, then as a booking agent, I've got a job.
Absolutely.
Right? As a lawyer, I've got a job. As a photographer, I've got a job.
Yeah.
Every person in the chain gets paid. The problem is, right? Elsewhere in the world, the artist has been erased. Only his product exists.
Yeah.
Right? And our artists here understand that. They understand that, no, I don't want my product to overshadow me as the artist. So now I have to promote the product myself so that I'm also seen. But that's not the way it's done. Unfortunately, in reality, that's not how it's done.
Again, I'll say this. We have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of teaching to do. We have a lot of unlearning and relearning to do as creatives in Botswana, as well as the market in Botswana, if you will. Because I think the critical component of all of it is the market and just the reception part of the entire thing. And this is where we're going to have to leave it. It's been such an insightful conversation. I wish we had the entire day, but I definitely am going to call you back because we need to, factor in a lot of other elements. Socks is loving you, saying Eddie's so brilliant. Thank you so much for this conversation. It's a very needed conversation. A lot of artists need to get this information, to get the education, I think, more than anything. So let me take this time, sorry, to thank you so much for joining me this evening and having this very, very insightful, very, very important conversation, especially at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Because then it's actually drafting precedents to what's going to happen towards the end of the year. Thank you so much, sir, for your time
Thank you
once
for having me. Really appreciate it. I just want to say, guys, like you've heard, these conversations are there's nothing wrong with having a conversation.
Yes, yes.
So please reach out. I'm on Facebook, Eddie Mihigo. I'm very easy to find. I'm on Instagram as well. Reach out. Let's talk. Let's get small projects going. I've got guys coming from Durban, for example, in 2 to 3 months. So reach out. Let's do something. Shout out to Perfect Noise. I told them I'll give them a shout out. Shout out to them. They're doing a lot. These guys.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna engineer something for them to come to Yarona FM. So shout out to those. They're young. They're just over 20. They're doing amazing things in the country, and they're very hungry. Yes, and I can't wait to take them regional. For them to do shows elsewhere.
Listen, our doors are very much open to you, Eddie, and to whoever it is that you feel would be very instrumental to this conversation. So feel free. You know where to find me as well.
Yes, I do.
Absolutely. So reach out to me anytime you need assistance in this space, and I definitely will be jumping to.
And the people are witnesses.
Yes.
So if I don't get feedback, I'll reach out to you guys and say, you see, someone told me to reach out, I didn't get a response. But thank you.
Opinions expressed on this show are not necessarily those of the station, its management, No, it's advertising.
Yeah, you were saying thank you.
Mm,
Hey,
mm.
thank you very much. Well, this is where we ended. Thank you so much once again for your contribution to the conversation. We leave it here. This has been in depth. We're making a way for the only cap you should be addicted to. She takes you on no cap from 7 to 10. Enjoy the rest of the Yarona FM programming. I'm back again next week, Wednesday. Find out what other pertinent issues we'll be dissecting at that particular moment. My name